next speaker, I came up to him, I met him right before the rally started, and I had bad news for him. I told him I couldn't read his whole resume, and he said, well, why is that? And I said, well, we haven't got all day. But Dr. Tom Borelli is the former microbiologist I talked about, and years ago, he changed his occupation to serve his country. Dr. Borelli is a senior fellow with the National Center for Public Policy Research, a Washington, D.C. public policy group. Dr. Borelli also serves as the director of the National Center's Free Enterprise Project. In that role, he defends the free enterprise system by challenging government actions such as regulation and taxation that stifle economic growth. He is a fierce critic of CEOs who seek short-term profit by designing their business strategies to align with social and political goals of government and progressive activists. Dr. Borelli is a frequent guest on television, and I'm sure to many of you he'll be very familiar. He's appeared on the highly rated Fox News Channel programs such as Glenn Beck, The O'Reilly Factor. He has also appeared on Business Network programs such as CNBC's Squawk Box, CNN's Lou Dobbs, and the Fox Business Channel's Varney and Company, and Money for Breakfast. He is also a columnist for Town Hall and contributor to the Washington Examiner. And folks, that's about 5% of his resume, but I better stop and let Dr. Borelli come on up. He came all the way from New York City. And I also want to say one thing about these people too. When you talk about American exceptionalism, these people are not being paid. And I know a lot of people on the other side think, yeah, this is a big organization that raises a lot of money, has to pay these people. The Borellis came from New York City on their own dime, and Major General Vallely is not being paid a dime to be here either. They're being here because they believe in what we're doing, and again, that's another example of American exceptionalism. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Thomas Borelli.
Hey, Indiana. Hey. How you doing today? Great day. There we go. It's great to be back in Indiana. Although I'm born and raised in New York, I do have ties to this great state. Early on in 1980, one of my first jobs, I was working in a lab in Evansville, Indiana. A few all-night shifts, I might add. Can't forget that. And I also have some familiarity with the Midwest. I have my bachelor's degree from Michigan State University. I'm at heart a part Spartan. Don't get mad, don't get mad. But I will make it up to you because I'm wearing IU red today. I have a son that is a senior. He is a Hoosier up at IU. So there is some connection. Today I want to describe three things that are really, really important. First of all, I really need you all to understand crony capitalism. And more importantly, how crony capitalism is driving Obama's energy policy, which is going to devastate Indiana. That's number two. Number three, I'm going to give you marching orders, like the Major General might, marching orders what each one of you can do to play a role to stop this crony capitalism. And that's really, really important. We can't do it alone. Citizens, as you know, today we are facing great challenges. We are saddled with massive national debt. Our economic growth is slow, and our unemployment is unacceptably high. Tragically, President Obama and his team are ill-equipped to deal with these challenges. Even worse, left unchecked, Obama and his crowd are going to drive our economy over a cliff. Let me ask you a few questions. Are ATMs the reason why we have high unemployment? President Obama thinks so. Will making electricity prices skyrocket? Will that help unemployment? How about buying a non-existent hybrid van? Will that solve a family's energy problem with high gasoline prices? And finally, are greedy doctors who are willing to chop off people's feet for a profit, are they the problem with today's health care? That's our president. That's his agenda. The good news, Americans, is that because people like you, we are starting to put points on the board and taking our country back. Because of people like you, the House of Representatives and states around the country are challenging Obamacare, and because of you, it's going to be debated and argued in the Supreme Court. The House of Representatives is also actively trying to roll back EPA regulations that are killing this economy. You see, Obama's not working alone. He's got a lot of friends. He has the traditional unions, the radical environmentalists, and the progressive politicians that have been fueling his agenda for the past few years. Now keep in mind, we all know this, but Obama is no fan of free enterprise and capitalism. We know that. Yet, he has added his big business allies as a propellant for his radical progressive agenda. That's right, big business is a key part of the Obama political strategy. Under Obama's regime here, big business has really changed teams. They are supporting his agenda. And what happens when big business changes teams and supports the progressives? Well, the progressives get a bigger government and more control. That's what they want. What does big business get? They get short-term profits that fuels stock option bonuses and options and profits in the short term. And guess what? And we all get to pay for it all with reduced liberty and higher taxes. Citizens, patriots, for us to further our agenda, we need to challenge the Obama big business agenda. We need to tackle crony capitalism. Here are a few examples. Obama's healthcare victory was propelled by the drug industry. A little history lesson. As you might recall, in the 90s, Hillary tried Hillary Care, but it was stopped. Why was it stopped? A big part of it was big business stood up to the plate and said, no, this is bad for our business and bad for our country. They killed it. Well, Obama learned from that lesson. So coming in, he knew he had to transform big business to his team. And what happened? He cut a deal with the big pharmaceutical companies, and they turned around and they kicked in $150 million to advertise for Obamacare. The former CEO of Pfizer, a huge pharmaceutical company, wrote a joint op-ed with the then former head of SEIU. Patriots, when you combine the money, power, and influence of big business, big union, and environmental radicals, that is a challenge that we need to break. And in the end, they won, at least short term. The drug industry got what they want, or at least they think so. When the rules are done, I'm sure they're going to be the useful idiots. But we get to pay for this expansion in the entitlement state and higher deficits, and of course, lower healthcare services. Now let's turn to energy policy, because this is crucial, because this is something that's going on today. Because of global warming concerns, progressive politicians and environmental activists want to limit emissions of greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases come from the burning of fossil fuels. That would be oil, natural gas, and coal. The problem, citizens, is that 85% of our energy comes from fossil fuels. To the extent that they make us stop using fossil fuels, our energy prices are going to skyrocket. Now, President Obama has been leading the attack on fossil fuels, and really should come as no surprise. Way back when he was campaigning, he said his cap-and-trade plan would necessarily make energy prices skyrocket. and he has not stopped from that agenda. But we were fortunate that cap and trade did not go through the Senate. It passed the House. But it almost passed the Senate, and it did pass the House because he had a legion of big business allies who wanted to make money from selling carbon credits and from selling renewable energy. Let's think solar panels. Anybody hear of Solyndra? Here are some of the companies that helped him. General Electric, Johnson & Johnson, Duke Energy, who may supply you with your power locally, and Honeywell, just some of the companies. Now again, the good news is cap and trade died. The bad news is big business still waged billions of dollars on this green energy plan, and they're not going to give up. The problem with renewable energy is it's expensive, and it can't compete head-to-head with fossil fuels. Can't do it. So that's why they need the boot of government to come in and artificially raise the price of traditional forms of energy. That's what they're doing. And Obama, again, was clearly open with this. He said after the failure of cap and trade, he was going to achieve his climate policy in chunks. Well, citizens, what are the chunks? The chunks is using his administrative agencies, primarily the EPA, to raise our energy prices. How are they doing this? Well, first of all, the Obama administration is reducing supply. First of all, with oil, we've seen the delays in the Gulf of Mexico of drilling permits, and also in Alaska. If reduced supply, prices will go up. But his real target is coal. Remember, Obama once said, if you want to build a coal power plant, you can, but you may go bankrupt under my cap and trade plan. Again, he said this before he was president. Indiana, this is a big problem for you. 90% of your electricity comes from coal. The Obama administration is waging a war against your source of energy. It's up close and it's personal. To meet Obama's goal, he's unleashing a series of regulations under the EPA. There is the cross-state air rule. There is the utility MACT rule. There is the coal ash rule. There is the greenhouse gas rule. Rule after rule. Now, what are these going to cost? Just two of those rules, the cross-state air rule and the utility MACT rule, is estimated to cost about $18 billion a year in regulatory